Russo's hand was already around Alexa's throat before she could scream. You think you can say no to me? His breath reeked of whiskey and entitlement as he slammed her against the mahogany wall of his office, family portraits of the Russo bloodline watching her struggle. In my empire, sweetheart, everything belongs to me, including you. Alexa clawed at his fingers, her vision spotting. The diamond-encrusted ring on his pinky cut into her skin. She'd seen him kill a man with those hands last month, casually over a missed payment, and bury him in concrete before lunch. I work for you, she choked out. I don't fuck for you. His grip tightened. Wrong answer. The door burst open. Marco, Russo's consigliere, stepped inside with that dead-eyed expression that meant business. Don, the Valentino shipment. Chicago's on the line. Russo released her, and Alexa crashed to the floor, gasping. He straightened his Armani suit, running a hand through slicked-back hair like he hadn't just tried to strangle her. You're done here, he said, not even looking at her. Security will escort you out. And Alexa? Now he looked. Now he smiled. If you talk about what you've seen in this office, I'll make sure they never find enough of you to bury. 20 minutes later, Alexa stood on the rain-slicked streets of Manhattan's Little Italy with a cardboard box of her belongings and $37 in her checking account. 3 years. She'd given the Russo empire 3 years of her life, managing logistics, cleaning their money through legitimate art galleries, being smarter than every man in that room. And it ended with bruises around her throat. Her phone buzzed. Eviction notice. Final warning. She laughed, a broken, hollow sound that scattered the pigeons near her feet. Of course. Of fucking course. Her keys were gone, wallet missing. The box she'd been holding, someone grabbed it while she was checking her phone, disappearing into the crowd. Welcome to rock bottom. If you've ever had everything collapse in a single night, if you've ever stood in the rain wondering how you fell so far, so fast, you know where this goes. But here's what Alexa doesn't know yet. The worst night of her life is about to introduce her to the one man who'll make her question if destruction can feel like devotion. Subscribe, because in the mafia world, the only thing more dangerous than having nothing to lose is catching the attention of a man who has everything to take. The bar was called Inferno, which Alexa thought was a little on the nose, but also perfectly appropriate. It was the kind of place where men in $1,000 suits sat in leather booths making deals that would never see daylight, where the bartender knew when to refill your glass and when to pretend he was deaf. He ordered whiskey, neat, the kind that burns going down and made forgetting easier. Rough night? The bartender was older, Italian, with the kind of face that had seen too much and stopped asking questions decades ago. Rough life. Alexa touched her throat, wincing. The bruises were already forming, purple-black against her olive skin. He slid her a second drink. This one on the house. Whatever he did, he's a stronzo. She smiled, despite everything. Yeah, he is. That's when she felt it, the weight of someone's attention, heavy and absolute. The booth in the back corner was separated from the rest of the bar by frosted glass and the kind of silence that came with real power. She'd been in the mafia world long enough to recognize a made man's territory. The 2 guards flanking the entrance weren't there for decoration. Inside that booth sat the most beautiful monster she'd ever seen. Antonio Marchetti didn't look at her the way most men did. He studied her the way a predator studied prey, patient, thorough, already knowing how the hunt would end. Dark hair, darker eyes, a jaw that could cut glass, the kind of expensive that didn't need to announce itself. His watch probably cost more than her yearly salary, and he wore it like an afterthought. Tattoos peeked from beneath his collar, religious iconography, Roman numerals, the kind of ink that told stories in blood. A waiter appeared at her elbow, making her jump. Compliments of Mr. Marchetti, the waiter said, gesturing to the private booth. He requests your company. Alexa's first instinct was to run. Her throat still ached from Russo's hands. Her heart still bled from walking in on her college boyfriend fucking some blonde with perfect tits and no conscience. Men were the common denominator in every disaster of her life. But then Antonio raised his glass, a small gesture, almost mocking, and something in his eyes made her forget how to breathe. She thought about the bruises on her throat, the empty bank account, the eviction notice. She thought about how his hands would feel compared to Russo's. "Tell Mr. Marchetti that I don't take orders well." The waiter looked genuinely concerned for her life. But Antonio smiled. She went anyway. Because fuck it. Because what else did she have to lose? Because the way he looked at her made her feel like something other than a victim for the first time all night. The guards stepped aside as she approached, and suddenly she was in his gravity. Expensive cologne, cigar smoke, and something darker she couldn't name but recognized bone deep. "Sit." Not a request. She sat. "You have a name, or should I keep calling you the woman who just told my waiter to fuck off?" His voice was gravel and silk, the kind of voice that probably sounded the same whether he was ordering dinner or ordering someone's death. "Alexa." She met his eyes, refusing to look away first. "Alexa Romano." Something flickered across his face. Recognition. "Romano? Sicily?" Third-generation American, but my nana made sure I remembered where I came from. He poured her a drink from the bottle on his table, Macallan 25, the kind of scotch that cost more than rent. "And where are you, Alexa Romano? Because those bruises on your throat tell me you're running from somewhere." She should have lied, should have made up some story about an abusive boyfriend, a mugging, anything but the truth. Instead, she said, "I just quit the worst job of my life, or got fired, depends on who's telling the story." "Let me guess." Antonio leaned back, studying her with those unreadable eyes. "You were good at it. Too good. Made men uncomfortable. One of them decided you owed him something you weren't willing to give." Alexa's fingers tightened around her glass. "Psychic or just experienced?" "In my world, it's the same thing." He took a slow sip of scotch. "What did you do? Accounting? Logistics? You have that look, intelligent, competent, the kind of woman who sees patterns other people miss." "Art acquisition," she said, which was technically true. The art was just a front for moving money, but he didn't need to know that. Yet. Liar. But he said it like a compliment. "You work for someone who required discretion, someone who deals in specialized logistics." Her heart kicked against her ribs. "And what do you do, Mr. Marchetti?" "I own things. Simple. Absolute. Businesses. Properties. People's loyalty. Sometimes their fear." "Your mafia. Not a question." "I'm a businessman who understands that some markets require creative solutions." He gestured to the bar around them. "This is mine. The building above it. 3 blocks in either direction. When you walked in tonight, you walked into my territory." She should have been terrified, should have run. Instead, she felt the strangest sense of safety, like stepping into the eye of a hurricane. "And what do you want with me?" Antonio's smile was slow, dangerous. "I want to know why a woman smart enough to survive the mafia world is sitting in my bar looking like she wants to set everything on fire." "Maybe I do." "Then we have something in common." He raised his glass. "To burning empires." She clinked her glass against his, and something shifted in the air between them. Recognition, attraction, the terrible understanding that they were both standing at the edge of something they couldn't walk back from. They talked, and drank, and talked some more. Antonio was easier to talk to than he should have been, intelligent, darkly funny, with the kind of presence that made the rest of the world fade into background noise. He didn't ask about her bruises again, but his eyes kept returning to her throat with an expression that promised violence on her behalf. "I had a fiancé," he said somewhere around the 3rd drink, his accent thickening slightly. "Until tonight." Alexa blinked. "What happened?" "He came home early from a business trip." His jaw tightened. "Found her in my bed, with someone I'd trusted." "God, I'm sorry." "Don't be. She was a liability I should have cut loose months ago." He poured them both another drink. The man she was fucking, though, that's a different problem. There was something in his voice, cold rage wrapped in silk. Alexa recognized it because she felt it too, burning under her skin like fever. "What are you going to do to him?" Antonio's smile didn't reach his eyes. In my world, betrayal has a price, and I always collect. She thought about Russo, about his hands on her throat, about 3 years of loyalty rewarded with violence. I hope you make him suffer, she said quietly. Antonio studied her for a long moment, then reached across the table and traced the bruises on her throat with surprisingly gentle fingers. Who did this to you? The touch sent electricity down her spine. His hands were nothing like Russo's, controlled, deliberate, asking permission even as they took. Someone who's going to regret it, she whispered. Give me his name, and I'll make sure he does. She should have said no, should have handled her own problems, but the whiskey was warm in her veins and Antonio was looking at her like she was worth defending, like her pain mattered, and God, when was the last time anyone made her feel like that? Russo, she said. Vincent Russo. The temperature in the booth dropped 20 degrees. Antonio's hand stilled on her throat. Say that again. Vincent Russo, head of the Russo Empire. He was my boss until tonight. She watched Antonio's face carefully. You know him. Know him? Antonio laughed, sharp and bitter. He's the man who was fucking my fiancé, the man I'm going to destroy. The universe, Alexa thought distantly, had a sick sense of humor. Small world, she managed. Not small enough. Antonio's thumb brushed over her pulse point, feeling it race. Tell me everything. Every secret, every weakness, every moment he thought you weren't paying attention. Help me burn his empire to the ground. Revenge. He was offering her revenge, wrapped in silk and violence. She thought about Russo's hands on her throat, his threats. 3 years of watching him hurt people, and knowing she was complicit just by being there. And what do I get in return? What do you want? Alexa looked at him, this beautiful, dangerous man who just offered to destroy her enemy and made a decision that would change everything. Tonight, she said, I want to forget. I want to stop thinking. I want someone to touch me like I'm not broken. Antonio's eyes darkened. I can do that, but I need you to understand something first. He leaned in close, his lips brushing her ear. I don't do gentle. I don't do soft. If I take you upstairs to one of my private rooms, I'm going to fuck you like I own you. And tomorrow, when you wake up, you're going to ache in places you didn't know existed. Her breath hitched. Every rational thought in her head screamed at her to walk away. Instead, she turned her head so her lips nearly touched his. Promise? The room upstairs was all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Expensive, private, the kind of place where powerful men brought their secrets. Antonio locked the door behind them, and suddenly the air felt too thin. Last chance, he said, but he was already pulling her against him, his hands spanning her waist. Walk away now, and tomorrow we pretend this never happened. Alexa grabbed his face and kissed him, hard, desperate, 3 years of rage and pain and loneliness pouring out in that single moment of contact. He responded like a man starving, backing her against the wall, one hand fisting in her hair, while the other hiked her skirt up her thighs. The kiss was brutal, claiming, nothing like the awkward fumbling of her college boyfriend or the entitled groping of men who thought she owed them. This was possession. Tell me you want this, he growled against her mouth, his hand sliding between her thighs. Say it. I want this. I want you. I want to forget everything but your name. That was all he needed. He lifted her like she weighed nothing, carrying her to the bed, and Alexis surrendered to the beautiful violence of it. His mouth on her throat, his hands everywhere, the delicious ache of being wanted with an intensity that bordered on worship. Later, much later, she would remember every moment, the way he made her beg, the way he took her apart piece by piece and put her back together differently, the way he whispered in Italian against her skin, words she didn't understand but felt in her bones. Mia. Mine. For one perfect night, Alexa Romano forgot about Russo, about poverty, about every man who'd ever hurt her. She belonged to Antonio Marchetti, even if neither of them knew yet what that would cost. Alexa woke to sunlight and silence. The bed beside her was empty, sheets cool to the touch. No note, no message, just the faint scent of his cologne on the pillow and the ache between her thighs that proved last night hadn't been a dream. She sat up slowly, cataloging the damage: bite marks on her shoulder, fingerprint bruises on her hips, whisker burn on her inner thighs. Evidence of what they'd done mapped across her skin like a confession. Her clothes were folded neatly on a chair. Someone had come in while she slept. On top of them, an envelope. Inside, $5,000 in cash and a business card for a luxury apartment building in Tribeca. No note, no explanation, just money like she was something he'd paid for. Shame burned through her, hot and acidic. What had she expected? A breakfast in bed? A declaration of feelings? She fucked a Mafia Don she'd known for 3 hours. This was always going to end with her alone. She dressed quickly, pocketing the cash because she wasn't stupid enough to refuse it, and left before whoever worked for him could see her walk of shame. Outside, Manhattan was bright and cruel and utterly indifferent to her humiliation. For 2 weeks, Alexa tried to forget Antonio Marchetti. She used his money to pay her rent, to buy groceries, to pretend she could start over. She applied for jobs at legitimate companies, interviewed with people who'd never killed anyone, tried to build a normal life. But every night she dreamed of his hands on her throat, so different from Russo's, promising pleasure instead of pain. Every night she woke up aching for someone who'd disappeared like smoke. The rejection letters piled up. Overqualified, not the right fit, we've decided to go in a different direction. What they meant: your resume has 3 years working for a company that's a known mafia front. We're not touching you with a 10-foot pole. Desperation tasted copper on her tongue. She was scrolling through job listings, ignoring the way her stomach growled from skipping lunch, when she saw it. Senior Logistics Manager, Marchetti Enterprises. Her heart stopped. Antonio's company, his empire. The job description was perfect. Everything she was good at, everything she'd done for Russo, but legitimate, almost legitimate. The salary was double what she'd made before. She stared at the listing for 3 hours before applying, told herself it was just a job, that she wouldn't even get an interview, that someone in HR would screen her application and file it in the trash where it belonged. She hit submit at 11:47 p.m., powered by wine and recklessness. And then she waited. The callback came 2 days later. Ms. Romano, this is Luca Rossini, capo for Marchetti Enterprises. The voice on the phone was smooth, intelligent, with the faint trace of an Italian accent. We'd like to invite you for an interview. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Yes, thank you. I'll be there. One more thing. A pause. Your previous employer was the Russo family, correct? Her throat went dry. Yes. Good. We value experience. Another pause, loaded with meaning. Mr. Marchetti will be conducting the interview personally. The line went dead. Alexa stared at her phone, heart hammering. Antonio was going to interview her. The man who'd fucked her unconscious and then disappeared was going to sit across a desk and ask her about her qualifications. She was going to die of humiliation. The Marchetti building was in Midtown, all glass and steel, and the kind of wealth that didn't need to prove itself. Security in the lobby, cameras everywhere, men in expensive suits moving with the coiled readiness of soldiers. She signed in, got a visitor badge, took the elevator to the 40th floor with her resume clutched in sweating hands. The receptionist was beautiful, efficient, and looked at Alexa like she already knew every secret. Mr. Rossini will see you now. Luca Rossini was younger than she expected, maybe 35, with sharp features and sharper eyes. He studied her resume with the kind of attention that meant he was reading between the lines. 3 years with Russo Acquisitions, he said. Impressive. Most people don't last 3 months in that environment. I'm good at what I do. Clearly. He set down the resume. Tell me, Ms. Romano, why did you leave? The truth would sink her. The lie would too if he already knew. Creative differences, she said carefully. Luca smiled.
Vincent Russo doesn't strike me as a man who tolerates creative differences. No, he doesn't. Did he hurt you? The question was so direct it stole her breath. Alexa touched her throat instinctively. The bruises had faded, but the memory remained. That's not relevant to my qualifications. It's relevant to whether you'd be an asset to this organization. Luca leaned forward. We're at war with the Russo Empire. Have been for years. You walked away from them, which means you know things, saw things. We value that kind of knowledge. You want me to spy on my former employer? You want to do the job you're applying for. If that job happens to put you in a position to share insights about our competitors, well, that's just good business. Before she could respond, the office door opened. Antonio Marchetti walked in, and the temperature dropped. Their eyes met, and the world stopped. Antonio's face gave away nothing, but Alexa saw the flash of recognition in his eyes, the slight tightening of his jaw. He looked different in a suit, somehow more dangerous. The ink on his throat was visible above his collar, and she remembered tracing those tattoos with her tongue while he moved inside her. Ms. Romano, his voice was pure ice. Luca, give us the room. Luca left without question, closing the door behind him. Silence stretched like broken glass. You applied to work for me? Antonio said finally. I applied for a job. I didn't know you'd be the one interviewing me. Liar. He moved closer, predatory. You knew exactly what you were doing. Alexa lifted her chin. You left. No note, no explanation, just money like I was a fucking prostitute. What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to think I gave you a way out, a clean exit. His hand slammed down on the desk, making her jump. And instead, you apply to work in my organization, knowing what I do, knowing who I am. I need a job, Antonio. I need to survive, and apparently my resume is poison to everyone except you. He laughed, bitter and sharp. Your resume is poison because everyone knows Russo doesn't let his people go. They're waiting for you to turn up dead in the Hudson. The words hit like a fist. Then give me protection. Give me a reason for him to leave me alone. By hiring you? Antonio was close enough now that she could smell his cologne, feel the heat of him. That's a declaration of war, Tesoro. The moment you walk into this building as my employee, you paint a target on both our backs. I'm already a target. At least this way I can fight back. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or recognition of a kindred spirit. You want revenge, he said quietly. I want to make him pay for what he did to me, for every woman he hurt, for every person he destroyed because he could. She stepped closer, reckless. You said you were going to burn his empire. I want to help. Antonio's hand came up, cupping her jaw with a gentleness that made her breath catch. His thumb traced her lower lip. If I hire you, you belong to me, not just professionally, completely. You live where I say. You go nowhere without protection. You tell me everything you know about Russo the operation, and you do exactly what I tell you when I tell you. That's not a job offer, that's ownership. In this world, it's the same thing. The question is whether you're brave enough or stupid enough to accept. Alexa should have walked away, should have found another city, another life, another way to survive. Instead, she said, I accept. Antonio's smile was slow, dangerous, victorious. Then you start tomorrow. Luca will handle the paperwork. You'll work directly under him, learning our operations, identifying vulnerabilities in Russo's supply chain. And the rest of it, the protection, the control? You'll move into one of my properties tonight. I'll send men to collect your things. His hand was still on her face, possessive. And Alexa, that night we spent together, that's not happening again. The rejection stung more than it should have. Why not? Because you work for me now, and I don't fuck my employees. He stepped back, professional distance slamming into place. Luca will brief you on security protocols. Don't make me regret this. He left her standing there, aching and confused, and already regretting everything. But she had a job, she had protection, she had a weapon to use against Russo. And if a small part of her whispered that she'd just traded one prison for another, well, at least this prison came with a man that made her feel alive. That night, she moved into a penthouse in Tribeca, the same building from the business card he'd left her. The apartment was absurd, floor-to-ceiling windows, designer everything, the kind of space that cost more per month than most people made in a year. 2 guards were stationed outside her door, more cameras than she could count, a panic button in every room. She was protected, imprisoned, safe, trapped. The lines were starting to blur. Her phone rang at midnight, unknown number. "Hello?" "Alexa." Russo's voice slithered through the speaker, and ice flooded her veins. "Imagine my surprise when I heard you're working for the Marchetti family now." Her hand tightened on the phone. "How did you get this number?" "I know everything about you, sweetheart. Where you live, where you work, how you betrayed me." "I didn't betray you. You fired me." "After I made you, after I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me, running to my enemy, spreading your legs for Antonio Marchetti like the whore you always were." Rage whited out her vision. "Fuck you." "Oh, I plan to." His voice dropped, intimate and threatening. "You're going to come back to me, willingly or otherwise, because the moment Marchetti gets bored of you, where do you think you'll go?" The line went dead. Alexa's hands shook as she set down the phone. He knew where she lived. He knew about Antonio. He was already planning his next move. The guards outside her door wouldn't be enough if Russo really wanted her. She needed to tell Antonio. She threw on clothes and headed for the elevator, but the guards blocked her path. "Sorry, Ms. Romano, Mr. Marchetti's orders. You don't leave without an escort." "Then escort me. I need to see him, now." They exchanged glances. "It's midnight." "I don't care. Tell him Russo just called me. Tell him it's an emergency." 10 minutes later, she was in a car heading to Antonio's private residence, a brownstone in the West Village that looked unassuming from the outside, but was probably worth $20 million. He met her at the door in black sleep pants and nothing else, and God, even furious and terrified, she couldn't help but notice the ink covering his chest and arms, saints and sinners, dates and names, a family tree written in permanent remembrance.
"This better be good," he said. "Russo called me. He knows I'm working for you. He threatened me." Antonio's expression went from annoyed to lethal in a heartbeat. "What did he say?" She told him everything, watching his jaw tighten with every word. "He's not going to let this go," she finished. "He's going to come for me." Antonio pulled her inside, locked the door, set an alarm that probably connected to a private army. Then let him come. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing over her cheekbone. "He'll find out what happens to men who threaten what's mine." "I'm not yours. You said—" "I know what I said." His eyes were black with fury and something else, something that made her breath catch. "And I'm starting to think I lied." If you're still here, you already know this isn't just a story. It's a descent into a world where love and violence are the same language, where protection looks like possession and surrender feels like power. Antonio's running out of ways to keep Alexa safe without keeping her captive. She's running out of reasons to fight him when fighting feels like the only thing keeping her alive. Subscribe, because the people who stay for this kind of darkness understand that the most dangerous thing you can do is fall for someone who was never supposed to let you live. Antonio led her deeper into his home, past rooms she didn't get to see, down hallways lined with family photographs and religious iconography, until they reached what was clearly his bedroom. "You're staying here tonight," he said, not a question. "Antonio, don't argue. Russo knows where you live. He doesn't know about this place." He gestured to the bed. "Sleep. I'll be downstairs making calls." But he didn't move. Neither did she. The air between them crackled with unfinished business, with the memory of his hands on her skin and the words he'd just said, "What's mine?"
I'm not yours. You said, I know what I said. His eyes were black with fury and something else, something that made her breath catch. And I'm starting to think I lied. You can't keep doing this, Alexa whispered, pushing me away and pulling me close. I need to know what I am to you. You're a complication. But his hand was in her hair now, tilting her face up. You're a weapon I'm going to use to destroy my enemy. You're the most dangerous thing that's walked into my life in a decade. And I can't stop thinking about that night, about how you looked underneath me, about how you said my name like a prayer. His forehead pressed against hers. I'm trying to do the right thing, Tesoro. I'm trying to protect you. Maybe I don't want to be protected. Maybe I want to burn with you. His control shattered. He kissed her like he was drowning and she was air, desperate, consuming, all the restraint he'd shown in his office completely gone. She wrapped herself around him and he lifted her, carrying her to the bed, and this time was different from the first. This time, he took his time, worshipped her, made her come 3 times before he even entered her, whispering in Italian against her skin. Sei mia, sei tutto, ti rovinerai per me. You're mine, you're everything, you'll ruin yourself for me. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, Alexa whispered, What does this mean? It means, Antonio said against her hair, that I'm going to burn Russo's empire to the ground, and when I'm done, you and I are going to have a conversation about exactly what you mean to me. And until then, you're under my protection in every sense of the word. The next morning, Alexa Romano officially became part of the Marchetti empire. Luca walked her through the operation with brutal efficiency, the legitimate businesses that fronted their real work, the shipping routes that moved more than legal cargo, the network of loyalty and fear that kept everything running. We're not like Russo, he explained. We don't hurt civilians. We don't deal in human trafficking. We have lines we don't cross. But you still kill people. Only people who need killing. Luca's smile was sharp. The world isn't black and white. It's blood and money and power. We just happen to be very good at all 3. She was assigned to logistics, tracking shipments, identifying weak points in competitor supply chains, making everything run smoothly. It was work she was good at, work that felt almost legitimate until she noticed the coded entries, the phantom shipments, the money that moved through channels that definitely weren't legal. But she also noticed something else: respect. Men who would have ignored her at Russo's empire listened when she spoke. Her ideas were implemented. Her intelligence was valued instead of resented. Antonio had given her power, even if it came wrapped in protection and control. She saw him in meetings, watched him command a room with nothing but his presence, watched men twice his age defer to his judgment. He was brilliant, ruthless, and surprisingly fair. He rewarded loyalty and punished betrayal, but he didn't hurt people for sports like Russo did. And every time their eyes met across a conference table, she remembered how he tasted. 3 days into her new job, Luca called her into his office. "We have a problem," he said, pulling up surveillance footage. "Russo's been moving money through a new route, art smuggling through the port of Newark, legitimate pieces mixed with forgeries, using them to launder cash and move contraband." Alexa's blood went cold. "I set up that route 2 years ago." "We know. That's why we need you to break it." She stared at the screen, at the operation she'd built, feeling sick. "If I dismantle this, Russo loses millions. He'll know it was me." "Good." Antonio's voice came from the doorway. She hadn't heard him enter. "He wants to know. I want him to understand that everything he took from you, you're taking back tenfold." He moved into the room, handed her a tablet. "Here's what we're going to do." The plan was elegant, vicious, and completely illegal. They'd intercept Russo's next shipment, replace the real art with forgeries of their own, and flood the market with fakes. His reputation would be destroyed, his buyers would turn on him, and the financial losses would cripple his operation for months. "And what happens to the real art?" asked Alexa. Antonio smiled. "We sell it ourselves, use the profits to expand our territory into Brooklyn, Russo's territory." This is war. This has always been war. We're just finally fighting it on our terms. He leaned against the desk, studying her. "Unless you're having second thoughts." She thought about Russo's hands on her throat, about his phone call, about 3 years of watching him hurt people. No second thoughts. When do we start? They worked late into the night, planning every detail. Luca eventually left, and suddenly it was just Alexa and Antonio, hunched over maps and shipping manifests, their hands brushing as they pointed out details. "You're good at this," Antonio said quietly. "Strategic thinking. You see 3 moves ahead." "I learned from the best. Unfortunately, the best was an abusive narcissist. His loss, my gain." The touch sent heat through her. She turned her hand over, lacing their fingers together. "We said we weren't doing this," she whispered. "I say a lot of things I don't mean when it comes to you." He pulled her up, into his arms, kissing her slow and deep. "You're a distraction, a liability, the worst decision I've made in years." "Is this your version of sweet talk?" "This is my version of honesty." He fucked her on his desk, scattering papers and plans, both of them too desperate to make it to the bedroom. And afterward, while she was still catching her breath, he whispered against her throat, "I'm falling for you, Tesoro, and it's going to get us both killed." She should have been scared, should have pulled away. Instead, she kissed him and whispered back, "Then let's make it worth it." Over the following weeks, they fell into a rhythm. By day, she was his employee, professional, competent, deadly. By night, she was in his bed, learning every inch of him, marking him the way he marked her. They never talked about what they were, never defined it, but she kept clothes at his brownstone, and he kept her close, and somewhere along the way, protection had turned into something that looked dangerously like love. The night before the heist, Russo sent flowers to her penthouse. Black roses, dozens of them, with a note in his handwriting, "You were always meant to be mine." Antonio destroyed them with his bare hands, thorns cutting his palms, black petals scattered across white marble floors. "I'm going to kill him," he said, and it wasn't a threat, it was a promise. Alexa cleaned his hands, wrapping the cuts carefully. "Not yet. We need to be smart about this." Smart went out the window when he started sending you gifts like your property. Antonio's jaw was tight with rage. "He's escalating. Next time it won't be flowers." "Then we hit him first. Tomorrow. We take his shipment, destroy his reputation, and watch him bleed." The heist went perfectly. Marchetti's men intercepted the truck at the port of Newark at 3 a.m., replaced the real art with forgeries so good it would take experts to spot the difference, and sent the shipment on its way. By the time Russo realized what had happened, the real art would be sold and the money would be gone. Alexa watched from a surveillance van, her heart pounding, as Antonio coordinated the operation with military precision.
"We're clear." Luca's voice crackled through the calms. "No casualties, no witnesses." Antonio's hand found hers in the darkness of the van. "You did this. This is your victory." "Our victory." She turned to him. "We did this together." The kiss was inevitable, fierce and claiming and full of the adrenaline that came with successful crime. But their celebration was short-lived. Antonio's phone rang. He answered it, and Alexa watched his expression go from satisfied to lethal. "When?" Pause. "How many?" Another pause. "Lock down all territories. No one moves without my say-so." He hung up, and the look in his eyes made her blood run cold. "What happened?" "Russo knows it was us. He just hit 3 of our warehouses in retaliation, set them on fire." Antonio was already moving, grabbing weapons, issuing orders. 2 of my men are in the hospital. One's dead." The weight of that hit her like a fist. Someone had died because of their plan, because of her. "Antonio,
This is war now, real war, and you need to decide if you're ready for what that means. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. I'm ready, whatever it takes. Even if people die, even if this city burns, even if we lose everything. Even then, she kissed him, hard and desperate. I'm with you until the end. Then God help us both, Antonio whispered, because the end is coming faster than we thought. The war escalated overnight. Russo hit their drug shipments. Antonio retaliated by buying out 3 of Russo's legitimate businesses and firing everyone. Russo sent men to vandalize Marchetti properties. Antonio sent men to put 2 of Russo's couples in the hospital. Manhattan became a chessboard, and Alexa was caught in the middle, valued asset, protected prisoner, woman in love with a man who was burning the city down for her. This has to stop, she said one night, watching Antonio clean his gun at the kitchen table. Someone's going to die. Someone already has. 3 more since last week. He didn't look up. This is what you wanted, Tessero. Revenge. Russo suffering. Not like this. Not with innocent people caught in the crossfire. There are no innocent people in this world. Only the quick and the dead. The coldness in his voice scared her. She'd seen him kill, watched him put a bullet in a man who'd betrayed him without blinking. But this was different. This was a man consumed by rage, unable to stop even if you wanted to. What happened to lines you don't cross? She challenged. Russo crossed them first when he put his hands on you. Antonio finally looked at her, and his eyes were black with fury. You're mine to protect, mine to avenge, and I will burn this entire city to the ground before I let him touch you again. I don't need you to burn the city. I need you to be smart, strategic. She moved closer. You're letting emotion cloud your judgment. Emotion? He laughed, bitter. I'm in love with you, Alexa. That's not emotion, it's a fucking terminal diagnosis. And yes, it's making me reckless, because the thought of him anywhere near you makes me want to kill everyone who's ever said his name. The confession stole her breath. You love me? I love you. I love you, and it's destroying my empire, and I don't care. He grabbed her face. Tell me you feel it too. Tell me I'm not losing everything for nothing. I love you, she whispered. God help me, I love you. They kissed like the world was ending, maybe because it was. The explosion shook the brownstone at 4 a.m. Alexa woke to Antonio shoving her toward the panic room, guards flooding the hallway, the smell of smoke and cordite thick in the air. What's happening? Russo, he's here. Antonio handed her a gun. Stay in the panic room. Don't come out until I come get you. I'm not hiding while you fight. You're not dying tonight. He kissed her, hard and desperate. I love you. Remember that. Then he was gone, disappearing into the chaos, and Alexa was left alone with a gun in her shaking hands and the terrible certainty that everything was about to change. The gunfire lasted 7 minutes, the longest 7 minutes of Alexa's life. Then silence. She crept out of the panic room, gun raised, stepping over broken glass and bullet casings, her heart in her throat. The living room was destroyed, furniture overturned, walls pockmarked the bullets, blood smeared across the hardwood floors. Antonio stood in the center of it, covered in blood that wasn't his, holding a gun to a man on his knees. Vincent Russo. Alexa. Russo's voice was wet, pained. Tell him you'll come back to me and he'll let me live. Antonio's eyes found hers. Is that what you want? She looked at Russo, the man who'd tried to own her, who'd hurt her, who'd spent weeks terrorizing her, the man whose empire she helped dismantle, the man who'd just tried to kill the person she loved. No, she said quietly, that's not what I want. Russo laughed, spitting blood. You think he's different from me, sweetheart. He's worse. At least I was honest about what I wanted. He's convinced himself this is love while he keeps you in a gilded cage. The difference, she said, moving closer, is that I choose him. Every day, every moment, I choose Antonio. Then you're both dead. Russo's smile was pure venom. "You think I came alone? My men are surrounding this building. The moment you kill me, they'll burn it down with both of you inside." Antonio's finger tightened on the trigger. "Let them try." "Wait," Abela grabbed his arm. "Don't do this. Not like this." "He tried to kill us, Tesoro. He'll never stop until we're dead." "I know, but there's another way." She turned to Russo. "What do you really want?" "I want you. I want my empire restored. I want Marchetti destroyed." "You can have your empire. You can have peace. But I'm not part of the deal." Russo studied her with those cold eyes. "And why would I agree to that?" "Because the alternative is your brains on Antonio's floor, and your empire falls to your underboss, which, by the way, has been planning a coup for 6 months. I know. I saw the financial discrepancies." She crouched down to his level. "You can die tonight and leave everything to a traitor, or you can walk away, consolidate your power, and focus on your real enemies instead of a woman who was never yours to begin with." Silence stretched like broken glass. "You're smart," Russo said finally. "Smarter than I gave you credit for. Marchetti's lucky to have you." "He is," Antonio agreed, gun still pressed to Russo's skull. "Now make your choice. Death or exile from my territories." Exile. The word tasted poison. "But this isn't over. One day I'll come for what's mine." "Good luck with that," Abela said. "I was never yours to begin with." They let Russo go with an escort to the border of Antonio's territory and a warning that if he ever touched anything Marchetti related again, his death would be slow and creative. "You should have let him kill him," Antonio said later, washing blood off his hands in the kitchen sink. "Maybe, but this way we keep the peace. Your men don't die in a pointless war. The city doesn't burn." Abela moves behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Antonio," he turned in her arms, water still dripping from his hands. "I meant what I said. I love you. And I know I've kept you prisoner as much as protected you, but—" "Stop." She kissed him quiet. "I'm not your prisoner. I'm here because I want to be, because you make me feel alive even when the world is falling apart. Because I choose this life, this love, this beautiful disaster we've made together. I'm going to marry you," Antonio said abruptly. "Not because I own you, but because I want everyone to know you're mine and I'm yours. Because I want to build something legitimate with you, something that doesn't require guns and blood." "Are you proposing to me in your destroyed living room while covered in your enemy's blood?" "Yes. Is it working?" Abela laughed, full and genuine and free for the first time in months. "Ask me again when you've got a ring." He did. 3 days later, he took her to dinner at the same bar where they'd met, Inferno, with its leather booths and dangerous clientele and memories of the night that changed everything. He got down on one knee in front of God and half the mafia families in New York, pulled out a ring with a diamond the size of her knuckle, and said, "Alexa Romano, you are the most dangerous, brilliant, infuriating woman I've ever met. You turned my world upside down, helped me win a war, and made me believe in something other than blood and power. Marry me, build an empire with me, choose me every day for the rest of our lives." She said yes. The entire bar erupted in applause, approval from families that respected strength, intelligence, and the kind of love that survived violence. They were married 3 weeks later in a ceremony that was half wedding, half peace treaty. Every major family in the Northeast attended, bearing witness to the union of Marchetti and Romano, of power and intelligence, of two people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided to build something in the light. But peace in the mafia world never lasts. 6 months into their marriage, Russo broke the treaty. He hit one of Antonio's shipments, killed 3 guards, and sent Alexa a message written in their blood. "You were always meant to be mine." Antonio's response was immediate and absolute. "We end this tonight, permanently." They planned it like a military operation, simultaneous hits on all of Russo's major operations, coordinated with families he'd wronged, executed with a precision that came from months of preparation. Alexa coordinated the financial aspect, freezing accounts, triggering audits, making sure that even if Russo survived the physical assault, his empire would collapse financially. "Are you sure about this?" Luca asked, watching her work. "Once we cross this line, there's no going back." "Russo crossed the line when he killed our people. We're just finishing it." The operation launched at midnight. Warehouses raided, accounts frozen, allies bought out or intimidated into silence. Antonio and his most trusted men went after Russo himself, finding him in his fortress-like compound in Staten Island. Alexa watched from the command center, coordinating communications, directing resources, feeling the weight of every decision. The call came at 3 a.m. "It's done." Antonio's voice was rough, exhausted. "Russo's dead. His empire is finished." Relief and horror washed over her in equal measure. Casualties? 2 wounded, none dead. We were clean. A pause. "Come home, Tesoro. I need you." She went. She found him in their bedroom, staring out at the Manhattan skyline, shoulders tight with tension. "It's over," she said quietly. "Is it?" He turned, and his eyes were haunted. "I just killed a man. Not in self-defense, not in the heat of battle. We planned it, executed it, ended him because he wouldn't stay gone. He was going to keep killing our people, keep coming after us. You did what you had to do." "I did what I wanted to do." Antonio's voice cracked. "And the worst part is, I don't regret it. He hurt you, and I made him pay, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. What does that make me?" "Human." Alexa took his hands, bloody and shaking. "It makes you human and in love and willing to protect the people you care about. You're not a monster, Antonio. You're just a man trying to survive in a world that doesn't forgive weakness." "I love you," he whispered. "Even when I don't know who I am anymore, I know I love you." They held each other in the darkness, 2 broken people who'd found something whole in each other, and tried not to think about what they'd become. The weeks after Russo's death were strange. The war was over, but the city felt different, quieter, more uncertain. Families that had been Russo's allies needed to be absorbed or destroyed. Territories needed to be redistributed. Power vacuums needed to be filled. Antonio worked 18-hour days, rebuilding what the war had damaged, consolidating power, making sure no one else would challenge his rule. Alexa worked beside him, his partner, his equal, the woman who'd helped him win everything. But late at night, in the darkness of their bedroom, she wondered about the cost. The people who died, the families destroyed, the blood on her hands, even if she'd never pulled a trigger. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked one night, tracing the tattoos on his chest. "Which part?" "All of it. The violence, the choices we made, the people we hurt." Antonio was quiet for a long moment. "I regret the pain we caused. I regret the lives lost. But I don't regret loving you. I don't regret protecting you. And I don't regret building something with you that's stronger than what we destroyed. Even if we're damned for it, especially then." He kissed her forehead. "We'll be damned together." 6 months later, Alexa found out she was pregnant. The news hit them both like a freight train. Unexpected, terrifying, miraculous. "A baby," Antonio whispered, hand on her still flat stomach. "Our baby." "In this world with our enemies? Antonio, how can we bring a child into this?" "The same way everyone does, with hope and fear and the promise to do better than we were given." He kissed her, gentle and reverent. "We'll protect them. We'll give them choices we never had. We'll build something legitimate so they never have to live the way we did." And slowly, carefully, they did. Antonio started moving the family business away from the darkest enterprises. No more drugs, no more violence unless absolutely necessary. Focus on legitimate businesses that could support the family for generations. Alexa used her intelligence to build those businesses, to launder their reputation the way she'd once laundered money, to create something their child could inherit without shame. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't clean, but it was better. Their daughter was born on a spring morning, perfect and tiny and absolutely ruthless in her demands for attention. They named her Isabella, after Antonio's mother. And when Alexa held her for the first time, feeling the weight of this tiny life they'd created, she understood what they'd been fighting for all along. Not revenge, not power, not even love. Hope. "She's perfect," Antonio whispered, touching Isabella's tiny hand. "She's ours," Alexa looked up at him, "and we're going to give her everything. A safe world, a legitimate empire, a future that doesn't involve blood and violence. Or at least less blood and violence," Antonio amended with a small smile. "Progress, not perfection." Years passed. The Marchetti empire grew. Legitimate hotels, restaurants, real estate development. Antonio became a respected businessman, feared but no longer hunted. Alexa built her own empire within his, managing international art acquisitions that were actually legal this time. Isabella grew up smart, fierce, loved beyond measure. And sometimes, late at night, Alexa would look at Antonio and remember the man in the bar who'd offered her revenge, the dangerous choice that had changed everything. "Do you miss it?" she asked one night, 20 years into their marriage, watching Manhattan glitter through their windows. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but then I look at you and Isabella and what we've built, and I remember why we left that world behind. We didn't leave it behind, we just changed it into something we can live with, into something worth dying for." The phone rang, their daughter, calling from college, needing advice on a business deal. Alexa listened to Isabella negotiate like she'd been born to it, smart, ruthless when necessary, ethical in ways Alexa had never managed, and felt something like pride. They'd broken the cycle. They'd taken blood money and violence and transformed it into something almost clean. Almost. If this story found you when you needed it, pass it on to someone who understands that some love stories are written in blood and sealed with sacrifice. If you've ever been caught between the monster you should fear and the man you can't stop wanting, you belong here. Subscribe so these stories keep finding the people who need them. And if you want to know what happens next, if Isabella inherits the empire, if old enemies return, if redemption is real or just a beautiful lie we tell ourselves, tell me in the comments. Because in this world, nothing is ever truly over. The blood may wash away, but the scars remain. And sometimes those scars are the only proof that we survived, that we loved, that we were willing to burn the world down for the one person who made us feel alive. From nothing to empire, from enemies to soulmates, from violence to something almost like peace. This is the Marchetti legacy, built on blood, sustained by love, and passed down to those brave enough to carry it.